6:00. I'm going to open the Board of Selectmen's meeting, March 20th. And this is going to be on local cable and Zoom and YouTube. And we have two of our members on Zoom, Leah and Carol. So if we can start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Motion to approve treasury warrant 23-19 and payroll 23-PW19.
Okay, we're not going there yet. We're starting with the administrator. First thing, so the first thing on the agenda is new town administrator, discussion and announcement of town administrator.
Missed that.
So, we all heard our three candidates. I don't know how we want to start this, if anybody has any general comments, or... Carol, you had a chance, obviously, to review it. Is Carol there?
Yes, probably.
I didn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you had a chance to review it, but you weren't in attendance, so I just wanted to check and see if you had any comments or questions or anything before we have any other discussion.
No, I watched all three last week.
Okay. All right, does anybody have any general comments, or?
I mean, all three candidates were obviously qualified, and they all, on paper, were superstars. First candidate, I thought, had a strong background in HR. She spoke about staff retention problems, managed growth. She had experience with Chapter 90 projects. She represented Rutland in the House of Representatives as a legislative aide. She had some grant writing experience, contract negotiation experience, and budget negotiation experience. Second candidate, Austin, he was a great communicator. He's involved in his town's newspaper. Also had experience in a select board. He had experience working local, state, and federal government, which I thought was important. He had experience assisting with his current town with the town budget preparation. I liked how we spoke a lot about developing a 10-year capital plan for his current town. He appeared to be very financially competent. He also technologically competent as far as tech savvy. Third candidate, Stephanie, again, she was an experience as a member on the select board here in town. She also had experience in HR. Also has experience with town budget preparation and labor relations, and she is currently working, which I thought was great, as an assistant town administrator. So all three of them were incredible candidates. How do you want to do this as far as...
do we have any other general comments, or?
It's Leah.
Yeah? Go ahead, Leah.
I just wanted to thank all three candidates for coming out and putting the time and effort into the application process as well as the interview process. It's not an easy thing to do, and I appreciate that. And I just kind of wanted to echo Tom's recap. I thought was very good and robust as far as the diversity and similarities of the three candidates. I thought that I will say I was and have always been surprised by the interviews. I think the interviews hold a lot of weight for me, and we look at the applicants on paper, but it's really that interview piece that helps, for me at least, nail down a ranking, if you will.
Okay. All right, any other comments? So I'll entertain any motions.
How do we do this? A motion in regards to one person?
If somebody wants
or how does that work?
to make a recommendation, make a motion to negotiate further, going into contract negotiations with any of these particular candidates.
I'd like to make a motion to enter into contract negotiations with Austin Saganowitz for town administrator.
Okay, and do we have a second?
Whiteman seconds.
Okay. Any other motions?
If I may, I think we have a motion we either need to discuss or,
Okay. All right.
I don't know, I just think that we either need to discuss and move forward or on the vote or
Okay.
discuss and then rescind and then reconsider.
Any discussion regarding current motion? Okay. Roll call vote?
Clock eye.
We
You go now?
You can go.
Okay, Galvin, aye.
And then Leah
Whitman, aye.
and Carol.
Benoit aye.
All right. And Nichols eye. I guess that's it. So the next steps would be to start negotiations. All right. Thank you all very much.
I don't know if, does
Congratulations to the board on your selection, and please let me know if you have anything you need going forward at this point.
Through the chair, John, thank you very much. That was a great process. That was my first experience. That was an impressive process. Thank you.
I will let the other two candidates know the situation. Do you want to be calling Austin at this point, or would you like me to make the initial contact with him?
Let him.
Yeah, you can let him know, and then we'll obviously be in touch with him to start discussions.
Okay, great. And if you need anything, give me a call. I'll be glad to assist with anything you may need moving forward.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
So do we want to tentatively schedule an executive session for next Monday? Do you think we'd be ready to have a discussion with the candidate regarding negotiations? Is the board, Leah, are you available? And Carol, did you want to try to participate in executive session on Monday, next Monday?
Sounds good.
Okay, so if we can
Yep,
set.
I could do it.
Okay, so I will just need to reach out and make sure, obviously, that Austin, if you talk to him, just check and see if he might be available on Monday, but I'll be reaching out to him anyway, so.
Okay.
All right, thank you. That was short. All right. Now you can go, Skip.
Motion to approve treasury warrant 23-19, payroll 23, PW19.
Second?
Couple of things, if I may, through the chair.
Yep.
Just a couple regulars. One is for treatment and transport to Upper Blackstone, recurring of $100,630. And another thing is you are up to date on snow and ice deficit. So as of this warrant, there's $39,822.96, which brings the deficit to date at roughly 137. That's all.
It's Leah, sorry. If I may.
Yes, go ahead, Leah.
I have a question about the snow and ice. Is that pretty much all encompassing the totals of the last storm? Is all the tree work cleanup and everything that the town may be responsible for done? Or is there still additional tree work that needs to be done that Grid won't take care of?
There's plenty of tree work left to be done, Leah, and we did get word that we will be eligible and possibly pay 70% of the cleanup costs through a state declaration. But there'll be weeks for cleanup of the downed trees.
That's what I was assuming but wondering, so thank you for that. Has Grid done pretty much all of their work and now the rest is on town, or is it still, is Grid still involved? Do you know? You might not know.
Is who still involved?
National Grid.
I have not seen the
Utility.
grid out there, so the power is fully restored. I haven't seen any new poles that need placement, but Mr. Buckley did raise his hand, does have a comment, if you can hear him?
Leah, through the chair, National Grid still has a couple outstanding complaints where trees are leaning on wires, but no one's lost service at this time.
Okay.
And the current costs that Gary referenced do not include any tree-related cleanup. They only include material, salt, sand, fuel, overtime, and hired services.
Okay, thank you. If I may, sorry, Lyndon. In storms like that, is cleanup typically included in snow and ice like removal process, storm cleanup, or is that a separate? I don't know how it's usually done. I just know that it seems like the past few storms that we've had this year have necessitated a decent amount of cleanup, and I don't know if that's encompassed in snow and ice or if that's elsewhere.
Generally, Leah, past experience, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, it's part of the cleanup, but now, however, because we have to track those costs and eligible for reimbursement, still won't be a snow and ice item, but it'll be the reimbursement for the storm from the state.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, any other comments? All right, so I get roll call?
Clock eye.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye.
Benoit, aye.
And Nichols' eye excluding any COA wages.
Oh, excuse me, excluding Safe Place for me, for Galvin.
Approval of minutes of March 6, 2023. We'll do them one at a time.
Yeah, that's
If
fine.
if everybody was there, you can do them as a slate.
Oh,
And
okay.
Carol would just abstain.
Okay, we'll do it as a slate then, March 9th, 2023, and March 13th, 2023.
Second?
Second. All right, and just a quick correction on the March 13th, you wrote action instead of acting. That's-
Oh, okay.
Not that it's not an action kind of a community, but. All right, any other comments? Roll call?
Clock eye.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye.
Benoit, abstain.
And Nichols' eye. Thank you. All right, department head updates. Unfortunately, our rec department director is unable to come tonight. Hopefully she'll come at the next meeting.
Oh, wait a minute.
Nope.
If I may, we skipped over public comment, and I do
Oh,
know
I'm
Sheila
sorry.
is here for public comment
Oh.
tonight. Thank you.
I'm so close to skipping that. Thank you. All right, public comment. Do you have
Yes,
name and address, please?
Sheila Judkins, 76 Wheeler Road. I'm here on behalf of the Rutland Historical Society, the president, and I just wanted to update you about our furnace at the Wood House. I know Scott Davis had been in contact with Gary as well as with Joe, and we agreed on the board at our last meeting that we were going to purchase a new furnace. We had called McDonald from Auburn to come and clean the furnace with the understanding and finding out that there's a crack in the heating chamber. So we went to McDonald, RJ McDonald, as well as Central Mass Oil, and we're going to proceed by purchasing and going with the RJ McDonald Company out of Barry. And so we are purchasing the furnace and the replacement, and I know Scott's been in contact with you too, and I appreciate that. So I just wanted to let you all know.
Thank you so much.
And now this isn't something that has to go through procurement or anything like that?
For the furnace cleaning? I don't
No,
know.
no, this is
Furnace cleaning,
replacement.
This is for replacement.
Well, we'd have to know the price of it. I mean, how many?
It's $7,300, but we're funding it ourselves, our committee.
Joe, have you been involved in that?
Okay?
Yeah, generally we should.
We should
touch
do
base
that.
Would you
with-
just double check, because there's some procedures that may have to be followed.
Okay.
I have a question. Sorry, it's Leah.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is it the historical commission, which is the board appointed town umbrella that's purchasing it, or is it the historical society, which is the nonprofit out of the board's purview that's purchasing it?
Right, it's through the Rutland Historical Society account.
Okay. So I'm just not sure how that works for procurement, because if it's a nonprofit that's essentially gifting it, I'm not sure how procurement works for that, not having any sort of procurement background.
Okay, but it's a public building. so
Yeah,
Joe, do you
nonprofit,
have
but
a
a public
comment?
town building.
Right, no, I was just gonna say, thank you, Lyndon, the building belongs to the town, so
Correct.
we probably do need to do procurement.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah, I was waiting for you.
Unless you're using municipal funds or tax-supported funds to make that purchase, you don't have to follow state procurement laws. I guess I would consider it a donation. So in other words, if the town had to purchase the boiler and put the boiler in the Wood House, we would have to follow state procurement laws. But in this case, where it's a donation from technically private citizens, no.
Okay, great. Then, yeah, you're good to go.
Good.
That's why I mean, you still should coordinate just with Joe as far as the oversight of it, I assume.
Right, yes, and I know Scott has spoken with Seth, and I've got all the emails here, so.
Okay, great. Well,
Great,
thank you
so
very
I'm glad
much for
that
that.
you're
Thank you.
in agreement. I know money's tight, we know that, but, we want to offer that, so
We appreciate
you're
it.
welcome.
Yes, sir. Name and
Thank you,
address,
Sheila.
please. Oh,
You're welcome, Leah.
sorry.
Hi, Richard Lopez, 23 Charlotte Drive, Rutland. So I just have some remarks I've prepared
Sure.
for the public comment for tonight's meeting. Good evening, Select Board members and fellow residents of Rutland. My name is Richard Lopez, and I'm an assistant professor of psychology and neuroscience at WPI. My wife, Rachel, and I have 3 amazing children, Jack, who's about to turn 4, Maggie, who just turned 2, and baby Robbie, just a little over 2 months old. Last summer, my family and I moved to town after a long and exhausting house buying process. We quickly fell in love with Rutland for many reasons. A day or two after we moved in, we attended the 4th of July parade, and it was just incredible to see the whole community out to celebrate our country's independence and the precious bonds of our local community. We've benefited from the warm and welcoming hospitality of our neighbors on our street. We've also particularly benefited from the wonderful and valuable resource that is the Rutland Free Public Library. And that is why I'm here tonight. I'm here to express my deep concern and frustration about the proposed budget cuts that would result in the closure of our town's beloved library. As you're well aware, the Rutland Library serves as a vital, multifaceted resource for our community, providing access to books, education materials, meeting spaces, and other valuable resources that many of us, especially young families with children, rely on a regular basis. And I could share various statistics and figures underscoring the importance of our town libraries, such as a 2019 report by the American Library Association that found that libraries offered more than 2.3 million programs and events annually, with attendance reaching over 113 million. Or a study by the Urban Libraries Council that found that public libraries generate a return on investment of $4.50 for every dollar spent. And this ROI can come in the form of increased property values, job creation, and increased spending at local businesses. Or I could cite research by the National Summer Learning Association indicating that children who do not have access to books and educational resources during the summer are at high risk of losing up to 2 months of reading progress, resulting in a summer slide that can have a significant impact on their long-term academic success. Libraries, of course, play a critical role in combating this slide by providing uninterrupted access to books, educational programs, and other resources during the summer months. Sure, I could cite these and other statistics and figures, but I would rather speak more personally and share what the Rutland Library has meant to me and my family. As new residents of Rutland, the library has been a place where we have felt welcomed and embraced, no questions asked, from the very start. The children's programming, headed by the inimitable and ever-gracious and helpful Miss Aislinn Lewis, is truly in a class by itself. And we should know, we've taken our children to several other libraries in the surrounding area, and Aislinn's dedication to providing high-quality and enriching events is unmatched. After we had baby Robbie earlier this year, I spent many chunks of hours in the library with Jack and Maggie, and it's no exaggeration to say that the library has been and continues to be an oasis for my children. Story time is not only a time for my kids to immerse themselves in fun stories, lively characters, and crafts, but it is an opportunity to connect with other children in a safe and welcoming environment. Seeing the smiles on Jack and Maggie's faces when I tell them we're going to the library for story time with Miss Aislinn brings tears to my eyes, because it reminds me that there are beautiful and pure things that remain in this world, things that we sorely need to keep and hold on to amid political division and social unrest. Our town's library and the community, beauty, and value that it brings is worth preserving. And if we do all within our power to preserve it, then I know for certain that our town will continue to grow and attract more young families like mine so that we can secure a desirable future for our children and grandchildren. So in closing, I urge you to seriously reconsider the proposed budget cuts that would eliminate funding for our town's library. Please, please seek out any and all means and measures at your disposal in the short and long term to avoid this unthinkable event. I know that many other parents in Rutland share these sentiments, and I hope that they add their voices to this plea as well. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just for your information, the current versions of the budget does not include the closure of the library. It does have significant cuts in all departments.
Okay.
So we are looking at an override to fully fund all departments, but the actual closure of the library is not in any of the current versions of the budget.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Do we have any other comments? And we agree with the value of our library.
Through the chair, just make sure everyone in your neighborhood knows, we need this override. If it doesn't pass, if people don't vote for it, there are gonna be consequences to that, unfortunately. We can't get blood from a stone, so.
And the vote for the override, is that in early May for the town? Is that right?
It'll be at the town meeting in May, and then there'll be an election for the actual override at the polls on the 8th.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other comments, public comments? Nobody on?
Well, a lot of people on.
I know, but not for that, I guess.
But thank you for coming, if I may, thank you for coming out and voicing that for your family as well as a lot of towns. Thank you.
All right, so we will go to the town administrator's update.
Yes, and I have a couple of things here from Sarah Galvin for Safe Place. Just a couple of quick notes. They will be having their annual license review in May or June. It's an unannounced visit, so they're not sure of the exact date, but registration for the 23-24 school year will begin in June. And also, Sarah has mentioned, I believe she talked to some members of the board about trying to get babysitting services offered during town meetings, so we'll hopefully get some additional families out there, so I think this is great. I don't know if we have to, I know we're listed as additional insured in the building, but we just have to make sure that all coverages are there. This happened obviously during COVID, also state of emergency, but we have to check in those things, and we'll certainly keep you, the board, and the public posted on how we progress with that.
Thank you on our behalf for organizing that.
Well, that's Sarah, that's not me.
No, I said thank her, not you.
Thanks, Sarah.
If I may, I think years ago that had happened. It's been a number of years because it was even before I was on the board. So, but there is some sort of precedent for it, but I just don't know what the process is, and I'm sure it's changed. So, thank you for bringing that back because I know that was a piece that's been missed by a number of families over the years.
Okay, thank you. So everyone, we did get a letter from KP Law that their rates are going up again. So it's another up $10 an hour, $230 an hour. So that's another reason why we added an additional amount to the budget line item for legal services. So that's just a brief update. We do have other things here, obviously, that are in the rest of your agenda. I believe this to Tamika, she has solicited, and I thought I brought that paperwork with me, Tamika, for an events committee. So if you want to give them a little update of what you have regarding that, there's a lot of people that are interested in this. We do have some funds available to keep some events going. Obviously, with the dire straits that we're in, we wouldn't be able to be tax-based supported, but people seem to be very excited about moving forward with this.
So you're trying to take number 40 out of order?
You
Yes, I am.
dream of it. Not without a motion.
That was me being Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay.
No, that's okay. If I wasn't here to heckle you, I wouldn't be here.
That's true, this is true. Did you hear that, Carol? That's all I got until we get to the regular agenda items, so.
Just another couple of things. I know that we've got a meeting set up with the community aggregate to talk to them about that on Wednesday, which is great. Appreciate that.
I saw that you accepted that, so
Yes.
it'll be there.
Yep, so that's great. And that's regarding rates for residents for electric that we had discussions with and had concerns by residents. And then Tamika got some information on a possible program for mass development, for mass DEP municipal assistance. So we'll probably look into that as well. So, I mean, we are looking at a lot of resources for the town as much as possible, especially free stuff. We like free stuff, and I'm just hoping that once we have all those resources and we have a town administrator in place, we be sure to follow up and take advantage of those opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, the next on our agenda, I'm sorry, we did agree to take out of order. What are we taking out of order, Skip? You didn't make a motion.
Give me a minute, you just didn't stop it. Come on, slow down a little. I'd like to take item 45 out of order
Is there any objection?
for the approval of the board.
Everybody's good with that? Okay. So Becky, that's you, correct?
I'll let Donna kind of take it over.
Okay.
So, I'm here to...
Oh, actually, if you can introduce yourself, have you been to the?
Just to say hello and
Okay,
introduce, so
so-
yeah,
just so
certainly, I'm
everybody-
sorry, I should have done
No,
that.
no,
So,
that's fine. I apologize for not recognizing.
That's okay. Donna Kuchar, the town accountant, and so I've been here working since about February 1st, and so I'm here asking for some funding through the ARPA, because one, the software that we're using for the accounting, they've been contacting the accountant in that position for approximately a year, saying, we need to make some changes. This software was installed in 2010. As you can imagine, many, many changes have happened since 2010, and they want to get SoftWrite. They're wanting us to upgrade to their to make a change. I'm recommending that the change be made to Vadar. The collector is now through Vadar, and the assessors are using the Vadar, and it wouldn't make sense to have a separate one for the accounting. So I'm recommending that we migrate the accounting into Vadar. Vadar has an excellent package for municipal finance, which is a very difficult finance. It's not, Massachusetts governmental financing is very different than many other states, and Vadar has a good reputation on top of their treasure collector and assessing package, as well as their accounting package.
I just want to make sure everybody knows that there's information in the packet on what she's talking about.
I have some here too.
Yeah, no, everybody has it in the packet. I'm sorry, I just want to make sure everybody had something to refer to. Go ahead.
So on top of that, the current software that we have with the accounting package has increased anywhere from 3 to 7% over the last few years. Vadar is actually giving us a commitment that for 6 years, they will not increase our software annual maintenance for the accounting. And it's approximately $2,500 less than what we're paying now. So there will be a savings with that. Of course, to migrate into that, there is a cost, and that cost is $32,210. And so I'm requesting that the board authorize the use of ARPA for this transition of $32,210.
So how long is that good for? Is that an annual expense?
The $3210 is a one-time, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear on that. The $3210 is a one-time, because there's cost for them to set us up, there's cost for them to create the conversion, thank you. And there would have been that same cost with the SoftWrite too. They weren't going to transfer us over just for the annual maintenance. There was going to be about the same cost for them as well.
Okay, yeah, so I'm sorry, I see that now. So there's a 6-year payment plan, and then after the 6 years, then there'd be another charge at that point?
It would only be the annual maintenance. So all they're doing is they're committing for 6 years that are annual maintenance. So with every software, you have a maintenance fee that you pay so that they can give you upgrades when they need it, or if there's a problem, they fix the problem. It's maintenance support. It's really support. So they are committing that they will not increase that for 6 years.
So through the chair?
Yes.
Because I've talked to Donna and Becky both about this, but we have in the line item so far $6,860 annually. And that amount will come down to 45 for the 6 years?
$42,900.
42,000?
Excuse me, 4,200, no, 4,000.
Annually, so that's coming down like the $2,500
Yeah.
that we talked about prior.
Yeah.
So there's already a line item in for that software of $6,860, so that'll be reduced by approximately $2,500 a year.
In FY '25. In FY '25.
Right.
So under those expenses, it says 6-year payment plan, 0% interest, and then it says $8,943.
Right. So they provided us two options. So that was one, we could split out the cost of the $32,000 and the $4,290 by 6 years, and so it would be 6 equal payments, which if there was an ARPA available, that may have been the best route for us to go. or we can have a one-time cost of the 32,000 and then the annual. So it's not both of them, it's one or the other we get to pick from.
But that's interest-free.
It is interest-free, yep.
And that's 8.9, and what are we paying now for the current?
6860.
68.60.
So I guess the way I understand it, you could pay that 8,900 a year
Right.
and forego the 32.
We can spread it out over the year with no
Yep.
interest.
No interest.
Over the 6 years, or pay it all at once.
That would mean a budget increase for the
Right.
next 6 years of around 3,000.
Karen, do you have any comment?
Yeah, that's not a good idea,
To spread it out?
no,
Okay.
because it's not, every year it's a difficult thing to do, so I would say if we've got the funds available, spend it now and move forward.
Because my thinking is only, if you pay it all at once, you're still going to be paying a fee every year. So it's a 42,990.
Right, 42.90 every month.
But that
But that's
fee
already in the
is
budget.
less than what's in the budget right now. by
Right, right.
$2,500.
And that's already in the budget, so.
And I guess my question is, can that 3,200 from ARPA be better utilized as seed money for a study for work on a town building or something?
No.
What do we get in there now?
What's the total, Becky?
What's the
Again,
total
Becky,
in
do you
there now?
remember? On ARPA. ARPA, the balance again, I'm sorry. We ask you
838
every,
roughly.
you should know it like that, Becky. We ask you every meeting.
I
think it's 838.
Well, with these, oh, I just had
So
it.
this would bring us down to 800 roughly?
It's about 8. That's the old one. So with the proposed 3 items, with this included, it would leave the balance in, for funds not allocated to projects of 770,000. That takes out this request, the other requests that are on the,
For
your agenda
the
this
next
evening for the
items, yeah.
19.5 and the 14.36, so. So there'd still be 770,000 left.
My struggle is I feel like we've been recently using ARPA for these things without the commitment to improving like the facilities, which was a big concern, or infrastructure or anything. And I understand the VADAR is helpful on kind of the town workflow side of things. That's not, but, and I understand Karen's point that adding an increase of essentially $9,000, or an increase of, let's say $3,000 over what is currently budgeted is tough. I also wonder if that 32,000 can be, like I said, better utilized for either the matching money, in-kind money that we as a town would need to go if we got a grant, or for the pre-engineering work that would need to be done for projects or whatever. I don't, I would like the board to have that discussion. Skip has made his voice heard, but.
I made my voice heard.
Yeah.
Carol, do you have any comments, or?
Nothing to add at this time.
I mean, I see the advantages on both sides. And when does this have to, this is something that has to be purchased by the beginning of the year, July 1st, correct? Or
Yes, it would have to be purchased, so, but it does take about 3 to 4 months, for them to do the conversion, because there's an awful lot of work involved. So I'm in requesting some type of commitment tonight, if at all possible.
And may I ask, I know at a couple meetings ago at FinCom, Seth and Becky presented the ClearGov information. That's not, but how does VADAR, I can't remember how VADAR would fit into ClearGov if down the road we were to look to ClearGov.
So this is an accounting package to work for the accounting, so that we can track the budget that is voted at a town meeting, so that we can make payables, we can have the revenue posted, and it does the accounting for Massachusetts accounting of finances. So it's not a budget. It's not a budget forecasting per se. There's information in there that we can extract from it because it's a good software for accounting, but it's not a forecast. It's nothing like the ClearGov.
Well, and I guess, I know ClearGov was kind of cost prohibitory, at least for right now anyway, but how would, if down the road, the town went towards some sort of forecasting / transparency type budgeting?
I don't think the two would mesh on any software that
Okay.
that we would have, that I would be coming forward for accounting.
Okay.
So.
I think this VADAR option is replacing what exactly is creating your warrants and processing all the bills and printing the checks, and it's the work piece of it. It's going to replace SoftWrite, which is outdated from 2010. I don't know, I didn't see the demo for ClearGov. I wasn't involved in that choosing of the software, so I don't know how it would integrate or what actually ClearGov does, so.
I guess I'm not opposed to there being a need to upgrade something. I guess my question is the best use of ARPA, because there was a conversation in the fall about not touching ARPA until we had better plans for projects for ARPA, and it seems like now recently we've been getting hit with this was overspent, we need this, but there's a need for a lot of things in town, and so how do we prioritize some needs over others or whatever? So I guess that's my...
Karen, just naming it.
Karen Norwell, Palmagussit Road. I would say the reason why Dan hasn't been doing it is because he was being cost conscious, but at this point, you're crippling her from being able to do her job, Donna, to be able to do her job correctly. Because without having the proper updates, you could miss things because the software is not doing what you think it's supposed to be doing. It's important to keep upgrades going on that kind of stuff.
Right, I mean, I know one of our initiatives is on financial review, and, and obviously it's important as well. I see, like I say, I see both sides, but the good thing is I'm the last one to vote.
It's also, we'll integrate it with because this is what we use in the tax collector's office, this is what we use for water and sewer billing. And in the assessor's office for generating the bills and everything like that. So it makes it a more integrated, fully functional, all-one software.
I mean, I can see with the timing, we need to, if we're gonna do it now, because I might even say, okay, let's see if we do it through free cash or something like that, but based on the timing and if we want to be in place for the beginning of the year, it's not something that we can wait for alternative financing.
Yeah, it's a necessary upgrade, so, I mean,
Lyndon, Carol has
we
her
have
hand
the
up.
money.
Carol, go ahead.
Thank you, Lyndon. So something that Leah said regarding ClearGov, and then also, but take it a step further, if we are lucky enough to get Austin, and his background is in heavy finance, I think that this might be could we wait? I know we've got a 2 to 4 month lead time, but would it be?
What is the deadline to make a final decision on this? Could it wait a week or two, or is that?
I think it probably could wait 2 weeks, yes.
So,
But again,
I just think
this
with
is not
somebody coming in.
what ClearGov would do.
Mike Moriarty's up here. Do you know anything about that?
No. He's made any comments.
I think though what I'm trying to get at is should we involve Austin? Because if we can make sure that we have systems in place that he can do what he has said that he wants to do with projections and all of that, I think it would be nice to have that conversation with him first.
So no accounting package that I would come forward to would provide anything anything different than what I'm asking for with the VADAR. The accounting and the budgeting, forecasting, and ClearGov are completely different. They're two different. I don't even know that I would say they're apples and oranges. They're kind of they're completely different avenues of what you're trying to accomplish. So, is it Karen? What Karen said is exactly true. This is trying to accomplish the accounting position role here, and SoftWrite is going away. So. We do need to make some type of decision, and where the town is already using VADAR, it makes sense, in my opinion, to integrate the accounting with the VADAR as well, and not go the route of SoftWrite's other option.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Don, thank you. Now, is there, I know SoftWrite's recommending something else, so another conversion or upgrade to the software. So it's obviously not the same company, and part two of that, is there a cost associated with that conversion or update?
Most definitely, and their cost would be about $25,000 for an upgrade.
So $25,000 for an upgrade and the continuous 6860, if you will, per year?
And with committed increases every year, and actually, they hadn't sent anything in writing, and I asked them to send something in writing for 2024, and the $6,860 won't even cover it. It's another $200 on top of that. So their commitment for their annual maintenance and support is astronomically high.
And they can't give us a scheduled plan like the 6-year plan, so every year would
they
be
can't.
different, you're not signing for a guaranteed rate year after year.
I am not.
Okay, I just wanted to ask that so you'd be aware.
I guess for me, it's not, I'm okay going to Vadar. Like, I think it makes sense if that's what the other offices are using. My struggle is whether it's ARPA or spread out over the course of the years. Although we heard from Karen that that's not ideal, I am struggling with the ARPA expenses that seem to be hitting much more consistently without necessarily any of the bigger project-based payouts that we were.
And I understand that concern, I'm just more concerned about what we're going through right now, obviously budget-wise, to up that line item by $3,000 as opposed to just paying it outright. I mean, it is interest-free, I get that, but it's still, it's almost a $10,000 hit as opposed to the 6860 or the 4200 that they're
And I guess,
suggesting.
is there a way that we can absolutely, like, contract ensure that they're not going, because this is what we're going through with Spectrum, right? Is that we were told over and over and over again that it was going to be a bottom line, and then we've been getting hit with increases here and there and everywhere. So is there a way to, like, ensure that this isn't going, that we're not going to be back here in a year?
It's an excellent question. Can I?
Yes, go ahead.
And so, but that's what this is their commitment. And I have worked with Vadar before, and I've had this 6-year commitment for, and they have followed through with
And
it.
they've honored it all?
They have, to them, this is their commitment. And so they want to do well in Massachusetts because they're a Massachusetts-based company. They're not gonna do that because they want to make sure the word gets out that they're a reputable company. And so I can tell you from personal experience that I am 100% confident this is their commitment by putting this quote together, that it will not change for 6 years.
So is it in the form of a contract, or?
It will be.
Okay.
This right now is they're providing to us what their commitment is, you know, in essence, a quote, but it will be in a contract, yes.
See, that's what we need to make sure we look scrutinized to the T, because we ask the questions like, you know, Leah had brought up regarding the cable a million times, and now here we are paying it off. So we need to make sure that these contracts are being scrutinized, looking for the fine print.
If I
When
may,
we did the
Chair,
upgrade,
oh, sorry, go
when we
ahead.
did the upgrade because we moved from Point Software to Vadar, it was the same situation where we smoothed over that upfront cost over 6 years, and that's all they charged us. And actually, I think in the 7th year, there was no increase. It was still the same. Well, it was gonna go down, but then we went to the cloud, so it was smoothed over, and we haven't seen an increase from them rate-wise.
So, through the chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Vadar and the request of the cost out of ARPA money.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Roll call?
Clock eye.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye.
Benoit abstain.
And Nichols, aye. All right, is that yes?
Listen, I just wanted to mention, Seth just said that, yes, it will interface with ClearGov.
Oh, now he tells us. Well, it's too late, we already approved it, so. All right, thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Now, back on schedule. All right. We actually have a guest tonight that's going to talk about some opportunities for the town. We have Danielle from RCAP. Can you hear us, Danielle?
I can.
Welcome. Thank you very much for coming.
No problem.
So you're going to give us a little bit of an overview about some of the discussions you've had so far with the town and what might be available to us, correct?
Sure. So my company's based out of Worcester. I work in Western Mass. But the acronym stands for Rural Community Assistance Partnership. So we help small communities with their drinking water and wastewater concerns, and we do, actually I have a giant list here that I emailed.
Yeah, everybody's got your sheet too. I don't know if that's...
Okay, cool.
is this-
Yeah, so what I personally do mostly is asset management, management and finance classes, board training. I've done a lot of GIS mapping. If there's something else niche-y that you need help with, I would pull in a coworker to help me out. But that's kind of, what we do mostly is just helping the system with whatever they need when it comes to technical assistance. And the original plan, I'm gonna make sure I quote it properly here. The original idea was, so it was back in, I think, September, was Rutland had asked for assistance in a community information meeting, and it was going to be either virtual or hybrid. That wasn't completely established in the end, but it was about a second source of water, possibly a new well, stormwater management, private well concerns, sewer capabilities, and the next steps the town wanted to take in those directions. There was also a discussion about discussing the second drinking water source development study or the need for pending stormwater utilities. So originally that was the plan, was to have a community meeting, and there's a lot that encompasses, and we could always in the future have more discussions, of course, to narrow it down if that's too broad, or if there's something very niche-y you want me to discuss, like one topic. That was kind of the original.
Danielle, what is the cost of that?
It's completely free.
Okay, so it's free.
We're funded by federal grants.
And we've been looking for an alternative water source for some time. So that's available to the town. I would assume that we would take advantage of that.
If they're, I don't know if they're really, Danielle, hi, Gary Kelleher, nice to see you again. Looking for the water source, does it lay out the steps of how we find that? Do you locate that? Or just giving us a play-by-play on how we get there?
I don't have a ton of experience in that, but I'd have to research that if that's the direction you want to go in. And we don't have to do the public meeting if you want something completely different. I can close out that project and open a new one, that's fine too. But when it comes to finding a second source of water, I'd have to research the steps that I would guide you through to look into that a little more.
Okay, thank you.
And another thing you do is you assess rates, right? You can do reviews of the current rates, you can make recommendations, systems.
We do rate studies, income surveys. I've done a lot of hydrant studies, costing out hydrants and figuring out risk assessment, vulnerability studies, things like that. Anything that is pretty much water related, I have a background in.
And what's the cost of doing the review of the rates and setting up the system?
All of it is completely no cost to you.
Because I think we paid close to $10,000 for that service before.
Yeah.
which I had made the town aware of previous to that. But. So that's why I want to make sure that people are aware that there are resources that, it's up to the town to take advantage of some of these resources.
Some of the GIS surveys can cost up to $20,000 or $30,000 when they're done by an engineer. So that's what we save. We save towns as much as we can by doing it.
And you can assist with trying to find funding. You can assist with looking over engineering, and you can.
Depends.
I'm sorry. So we're looking currently at probably needing a water operator. Do you assist in assisting with that at all?
We do actually.
Okay. And you also provide training, so if people want to be certified, it's free, and they can provide training to our employees for certification?
For drinking water operators, I'd probably refer you over to other organizations that have, some of it's free, some of it's low cost. We also, what RCAP does mostly is the credits, the
CEUs. Right?
Yeah, CEUs, sorry. Every state has a different acronym because we do all of New England, sorry about that, but we do the CEUs, and to help people keep their licenses updated. That's mostly what we do at our end. We don't really train the operators as much, but we definitely have some resources of classes that are upcoming that other organizations have, because I've taken them and they're fantastic.
Right.
And there's different levels of cost on that.
Okay. Does anybody have any particular questions for Danielle? Okay. And then RCAP Solution also has housing and community and other programs as well, which is not part of your specific charge, but they do provide other assistance and other community-related support?
Yeah, that's in the housing division. So we're
Yeah.
like, our office is unique. We're split with housing and water and wastewater. So that's the other part of the building, the physical building.
Right, I just wanted to make a note that there is another division that assists in other type of town-related issues.
If I may, Danielle, I see on the sheet that we have that it says that there's septic system basics and well assessments. Is that considered under the housing branch, rather that's considered under the small water and wastewater systems, or?
Yes, it's under the water division. So when it comes to the well assessments, we only have 6 a year from the EPA. I think they're already filled, but we do have classes we can teach. We actually have a wonderful presentation that we've taught to other towns about how wells work and well health and how to keep your well, basically healthy, how to keep it going properly, asset management on your own well, and we also have a septic class too. These are like preset of classes that we teach, but we can tailor it to a town specifically. We've done that many, many times. But yeah, like the actual private well assessment, we're done for the year because that's a very limited grant program. Everyone asks about it too because I'm the one that does the most of them. I did 250 in the last couple of years, and I wish we had more funds for next year for that, but we don't. Unfortunately, that grant is just going to look at the research right now.
Okay, just as if I may, just as like a seed for you is, I think as climate change evolves, I know in Rutland we've had a number of residents have their wells run dry, and they've had to look for a new water source, private wells, and they're having to go quite deep and hydrofrack and everything. And so just I think on your side of things, like that's a need, a stronger need in rural communities, especially that half or more of the town is dependent on private wells. And that was one of the considerations in looking for additional water sources within Rutland, is what that may or may not do to the private well systems that are already existing.
Oh, no, I totally agree with you on that. Just some of our, one thing my company doesn't have, we don't give out grants. We get that question every single day almost. We don't have any grant money, especially for private well owners, but we do have a sister company that has grants available if someone in your town needs a new well drilled or they need some serious treatment, that we can kind of guide them over to them because they have some funding available. That's all we have right now for our funders, unfortunately. But that's a really good point. It's super important.
Thank you.
So Danielle, I know that PFAS, that's becoming a big issue, contaminants, and the state is currently looking at regulating and even regulating private wells. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that will be
I get those emails every
significant
day
expense to the homeowners if there is an issue.
Yes.
Okay.
The big issue with that too is finding the funding. If the state's going to make these regulations, we keep going to them and ask, okay, where's the funding for that? If you're going to regulate this and make people put treatment on, and the funding's coming down the pipeline, it's just taking longer than we hoped, unfortunately.
I don't know if you tuned in earlier or not, so we just actually selected a new town administrator, so we'll be bringing somebody in new as well. Once that person's in place, hopefully that individual will reach out to some of these resources as well, and some of the other resources that we've talked about previously. But I appreciate you coming on and talking about the programs and the opportunities that are available. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can talk later on about if you guys want to discuss it later on or amongst yourselves, or what specific help you want or what projects you want us to work with you. I can talk to you further. And if it's something I'm not an expert in, I'll definitely try to pull in a coworker, or they might be the ones to handle the project, especially when it comes to finding a second water source. I'm not an expert in that, but I would definitely get help. You don't just get me, you get a whole team. So it's not just me that would be working. There's like 8 of us. So.
And you actually have engineers that work for RCAP, correct?
Yep, there's actually, on our division alone, we have 3 engineers, so if there's something that, like I said, if I'm like heading a project and I'm not an expert in it, we have meetings all the time amongst our own RCAP staff to talk about different aspects of the project and, bounce it off each other. Or you might get 2 or 3 of us on a project, that's pretty common, that come to the meetings and talk and update. So we can talk further later about specifics of what help you very specifically need, and then we can look at the community service agreement again, because the original one it wasn't signed, so we can just start from scratch with whatever you want.
Great. All right. Any questions for Danielle from anyone? Joe?
Through the chair, could you possibly give us some examples of other towns similar to the size of Rutland you might be helping? We're currently making about 300,000 gallons a day of water for our residents? And have you seen something on that scale or that size?
I don't, actually, this is embarrassing, I don't know the volume of, I'm making a note here, I don't know the volume of water produced by some of the other towns I'm working with because, yeah, I actually don't know. I've worked with towns similar size though, it just depends on what specific help they need. I've done asset managements for entire towns and figured out, we've mapped out everything in that, for the water system, we've mapped out all of the curb stops, all the hydrants, we figured out which ones need replacing. So I don't have a better answer about that kind of volume of water. It's a good question. I don't know.
So, but your organization works not only across the state, but across the country, correct?
We're a national network. There's 7 divisions of RCAP. The RCAP Solutions is based out of the Northeast, including New York and New Jersey. We also have the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico as part of our network. And if I have to go outside the network for help, sometimes we do that too, if we need specific help that our little division doesn't have an answer to. There's thousands of us. We're all over the country and Hawaii.
So, round numbers, we provide water to around 6,000 people or about 1,700 homes,
Okay.
if that helps.
So you can get that information. I know you've worked with larger communities and smaller communities across the state, so I know that you've...
I think you guys are right under the cap of like the size we work with. So
Right.
that's okay.
And it's usually under 10,000, correct?
Yeah.
If I may, do you work with the regional planning commissions also, or is there any crossover between, I know there's, regional planning can provide some local service technical assistance and everything as well. Does RCAP work with regional planning commissions?
We do. We work a lot, depending on the actual project. We work with state level employees too, but when it comes to regional staff, yeah, like the block grant committee, the BCGB committee, Pioneer Valley Planning, it depends on if there's funding involved and if the community is applying for funding, they usually have to oversee it. It just depends on the nichiness of the project and what we're specifically doing. But yeah, we have a huge network of people we work with. We work with a lot of engineers too and a lot of planning committees, depending on especially if the project is installing something that's brand new, there's a lot of people that get involved because they have to oversee it, make sure the funding is being spent to their level of detail.
I know I've brought up to Central Mass Regional Planning about your agency as well, and I thought at one point they were going to try to get a member on their board or on the committee, but I would have to check on that and see, because I thought Janet Pierce was going to reach out regarding that, as bringing you in as a partner as well. So, any other comments or questions for?
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Lyndon.
All right. Thank you. We appreciate it. Hopefully, be in touch.
Happy Monday.
All right.
Happy
thanks.
first day of spring.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Night, everybody.
Take care.
Good night.
All right. Annual town meeting, open warrant to open March 20th and close on April 3rd at 5 p.m.
Motion to implement.
Open and close.
Open and close. Motion, open, close.
Does that work for you?
It works for me.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Just that it's clearly communicated to all the boards and commissions that it's open and until when, because I know sometimes they feel like they don't get the notice that it's been open, and if they have stuff.
So someone will go out to all the departments and let them know it's open and the closing is.
Yeah, so we did already reach out to departments and boards and commissions to let them know to start working on any warrant article requests that they have, and they've been given a blank form. So yes, they've already been looped in.
Okay.
And now they'll know the official window of time.
Great. So we have a first and second.
Galvin, aye.
Wait a minute.
Benoit, aye.
And Nichols, aye. Great, thank you.
And this is keeping the annual town meeting as
Everything is scheduled.
it is,
Yep.
as scheduled, as on the calendar.
Yeah.
I just, more for the public, because
Yeah.
I know if they had
Sure.
watched any of the earlier FinCom meetings, that idea was being batted around.
And these dates for the meetings and everything will start to be showing up on the sign?
I already have them scheduled to go.
All right, awesome.
So yeah, they'll be up there.
Because, Karen will be asking, where's the town meeting on the sign?
No, I've already got it scheduled. It's going up there.
All right.
Tomorrow, I have to wait for them to open the warrant. That's all I want to know.
See?
Tomorrow's fine.
She's gonna be standing in front of that sign, waiting for that to come across.
I can't tomorrow. I go in too early.
Next, as Gary mentioned, event committee. Established committee appointment of members and discussion of possible reappropriation of remaining funds in 300th warrant article. So we have some information here. This is basically the proposed change in the proposed members, correct?
Yeah, Lyndon, if I may.
Sure.
So I figured there probably wasn't any point in establishing a committee if we didn't have folks that wanted to serve. So I put something out to the public, and I was so excited, probably too excited, that I got 17 responses for it, which was really encouraging, and it was a lot of new names that I hadn't seen before. So what I did next is I reached out to those people to try to find the best day of the week that would work for most for meetings, and that kind of weeded a few people out that couldn't make that commitment. But the people that you have on the list in front of you are those that are ready to move forward with being appointed. It's 8 people right now. I also drafted a charge for your consideration, and I did specify in there that this committee would have a working relationship with the town administrator's office so that we can ensure, that they have the tools they need to get proper permitting and to make sure that we can offer financial support as well.
So Becky, did you see this charge as far as being able to manage the financial activities and everything? Is that fine, do you know, if that needs any kind of? I don't know if there's any specific language. I just want to make sure if they're going to be handling money that this language covers what.
Yes, I apologize, Becky, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't put specifics other than just that our office was going to oversee financial transactions. That was the question.
So your office, so
Our
the
office
town
is going to-
administrator's office will oversee it, so the
Yes.
committee won't be distributed.
No, that's why I was specific in the charge that for permitting
Okay.
and for finances, that our office was.
So all approval will
involved.
go through, that's what I wanted to clarify. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
that's what I.
She did mention that.
Okay,
Oh, that's okay.
all right.
And do we want to, I know the 4th of July committee doesn't really have a maximum number of participants. I know 8, we usually generally try to have like an odd number if we are setting a defined number for quota purpose or for quorum purposes and everything. Do we want to do that for an events committee, or do we want to say that it needs to be it's up to 10 members, or is it just 8, or?
Well, I did, if I may, Leah, I did speak to Anita about this because I wasn't sure, and she said for a committee such as this, you don't, and I think Anita's on, so she'd correct me if I'm wrong, you don't have to set a specific number as you would for, say, like a zoning board of appeals. I understand what you're saying about the quorum. And just so you know, we did initially reach out to the 4th of July committee before we took this on to see if perhaps they were interested in getting involved or taking over, and they just didn't have the time to commit to that. So we did start with them. So it's not necessary for the board to set a specific number of members, but it's completely at your discretion if you feel you need to do that. I do have some other folks that are interested, but they hadn't confirmed as of tonight. My thought was the more the better, just because sometimes people fall off, sometimes people don't attend. And I hated to turn anybody away that was interested.
Well, so how do you work out what a quorum is for a meeting if it's not specific?
So it would be based on the number of members that were appointed to the board. So if you appoint all of those members
Right,
tonight,
okay.
you would have an 8.
So now it's going to be
board.
based on 8, but it could
But
change.
if we had like 4 more people come forward that are
They could
interested
be
in.
alternates.
We could appoint them and then it becomes a 12-member board and they need 6, I think is.
7.
Yes,
Right, yes,
yeah. But I think is how we've done it in the past with the 4th of July. And I think there were a couple other boards that didn't have a set.
Like the 300th anniversary committee
Yeah.
too. And so one other thing I wanted to mention, and Sheila stuck around for this, was I have been working with the 300th committee to see if they would be willing to repurpose their gift account to the events committee, just because it'll be similar, in the spirit of what the 300th was doing. And so they had planned to meet last week and couldn't because of the storm, so they were going to meet this week.
We're meeting Wednesday, so we'll have that all locked up for you, and I'll contact you and share the outcome.
And-
will be very positive.
I mean, if I may, I think that for that piece, I think it makes the most sense to transition it to a committee that is kind of continuing the spirit of the 300th, but I think that because those funds were mostly donations for the spirit of the 300th, that it's very clear that those are funds dedicated to kind of the 300th type events and not maybe some of the more administrative pieces that may or may not pop up. Just my own personal.
And I think too, we wanted to make sure that we were respectful of the 300th committee because they did work really hard to raise these funds. And so we didn't want to, make demands or make assumptions. And so we just wanted to make sure that, they were part of the decision and felt comfortable with that before we do that. But if they're okay with it, we'll come back to the board to have you formally vote to repurpose those funds for this purpose, for this reason.
So, through the chair, what would you like with this?
If the board is so obliged, I would appreciate if you would make a motion to form the committee and if you would make a motion to appoint the members as presented this evening.
So moved.
Are you gonna have to list them?
Huh?
You gotta list the members, and just so people know who's on the committee.
They already
Work
know.
for.
She already told them. Proposed members for the Town Event Committee is Jonathan Lynch.
Jonah.
Jonathan. what?
Joanna.
Joanna.
Right.
Amanda Holmes, Samantha Green, Brian Green, Kelly Briggs, Barbara Rochella, Ann Javi, and Jamie, whatever.
Scagliano.
Yeah, okay, you got it.
Right.
What Skip said.
That's what I said. Just what I said.
Then do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any other discussion?
I just want to bring up, because I bring it up every time, that it looks like there's people that are most likely related just based on last name, and it's just a point that I always bring up as far as a discussion that for appointing boards and commissions, that the board is okay with.
This is okay. This is a fun event. This is not, somebody jumping down everybody else's neck to get something done. This is a fun event. So, I mean, let's just be real. Let's enjoy it. Let's have a fun in
I
this.
have one question. If there's somebody who has a particular business, how does that play into where the events are or anything? Is there any conflict there or?
So the folks that I have talked to is that we would like to have this be an event that is open to everybody. So we don't want there to be any exclusives with any
Right.
particular businesses. As long as people are able to get the proper permitting for food trucks or alcohol vendors, things like that, we want it to be open to everyone.
Well, they would just have to certainly recuse themselves of any
Right.
that would
Correct.
financially benefit
Yeah.
themselves.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
That's,
So, clock eye.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, I.
Benoit, aye.
and Nichols, aye. All right, thank you very much. All right, marijuana licenses. You want to read this, Skip?
No, I really don't.
It's like 8 pages or something? All right, who wants to give us the
I can give you a quick overview.
Yeah.
So I had asked to include this on the agenda because KP Law had informed us that there are some legislative changes coming down the pike that are going to potentially affect the town. So back in January, Gary and I had met with Attorney Nicole Costanzo, and she provided us with the highlights of that, which I have put into that summary document that I gave you. I did also post it in the select board packet for anybody listening. And then I also attached the more formal documents from KP. But the basic gist of it is delivery services are now going to be allowed in all municipalities unless it is explicitly prohibited in our marijuana bylaw. So that includes services that are similar to like a DoorDash, where they go to the business, they pick it up, they bring it to your house. So that is something that the town cannot do anything about unless they exclusively prohibit it in the bylaw. Another thing that is going to be allowed is like cafes, marijuana cafes, for the consumption of edible marijuana products. That will be allowable as well. There's also going to be some changes to the town's ability to collect a 3% impact fee. And moving forward, it's going to be much, much more difficult for the town to be able to do that. The CCC is going to have the majority of control in the host community agreements, whereas before it was handled by the town. And impact fees are going to come with a lot of requirements for how you have to actually prove the financial impact that it's had to the town. So I know for a lot of folks, they had thought when, licensed marijuana retailers came into town that we were going to automatically get this 3% impact fee as revenue, and that is no longer going to be the case. And the last thing is, by July 1st, the town is required to draft and implement a social equity policy, which I'm currently working on trying to find a template for that so we can get something drafted.
So this typically goes through planning board, bylaw?
So the marijuana bylaw was written by the planning board bylaw subcommittee.
Right.
So my intention was, I think it's very important that we do loop them in to see if there are any changes that they want to make. So I at least wanted to bring it to your attention, because otherwise folks may not even know that these things are happening.
They're meeting tonight, right? Bylaw committee?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow night. So, anybody have any questions?
Through the chair, just so people understand, so this is, whether we vote for this or against it, it doesn't really affect the town from a financial standpoint at all, right? It just tells business they can't transport it.
Well, it does kind of,
It does, right?
because we have to justify, because we don't automatically get the 3%. So if we want to get money from it, we need to justify and spell out exactly for extra police patrol, for traffic control, for anything that we're going to recoup any kind of funding from, then we need to have that written out in the bylaw, or we don't get any revenue.
I think that stemmed from years of host community agreements kind of going above and beyond 3% and taking the marijuana businesses to task with a very high percentage. So now it's almost detrimental to the town now instead of.
And the other impact is going to be whether they're going to be able to deliver them, whether they're going to have cafes, so there's a lot in here that needs to be reviewed.
I think definitely it needs to go through planning and the zoning bylaw subcommittee, because this is all, I think, zoning related, because that's how we were able to get, it was the zoning bylaw that allowed marijuana in specific areas as it is.
Right.
So I think that this is really where that needs to
Absolutely.
to go.
And I wanted to bring it to the board's attention as well, because I know in the recent past, we had talked about possibly putting out an RFP for the available cultivation license, but given these changes, it seemed prudent to look at all of these things before the board moved forward with that.
Right. So are you looking for us to recommend that you send it to the other committees?
If you would like to, sure, absolutely, yeah.
Unless the board has any objections, I think we should send it to at least those two committees for review.
And have a move on it rather quickly instead of 6 months down the road.
Right. Does anybody have any other comments or questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Annual town report, choose individual.
Somebody needs to second Skip's motion.
I didn't know you made one.
Well, all we did was send it to committee, right? I don't think.
I thought you said you wanted to make a motion to send it.
Oh, do we have to make a motion?
You don't have to if you don't want to.
I don't think so. The board agreed to say.
I'm sorry.
I think I made the motion.
I'm so used to making motions, now I'm just making it up. Sorry.
You're just going through the motions.
Literally.
All right, annual reports, choose individuals for memoriam and for dedication page. And we did have some nominations that were sent to the board as well. And was that put out on town site and stuff for people to?
Yes.
Okay, dedication nominations, Daniel Haynes, who was our former town accountant for many, many, many years. Rick Surratt, who was a former chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the 300th Anniversary Committee. So we have 3 different suggestions for dedications. Any thoughts or recommendations?
I'd probably want to go toward the 300th Anniversary Committee. I mean, are we doing this just one person, or are we going to do more.
Do we usually dedicate just to one, or?
You don't have to. There's no rule that says you have to do just one person. When it was presented to me, it was for the committee as a whole, for their efforts. But the board can do however you would prefer.
No, but I think,
No, I think he meant like, can you do
Can you
more
do
than one of
an
these
extra
three
page
choices?
like Dan
Is it
Haynes
just-
as our town accountant?
That's up to you.
That's what I'd like to
They've done
do.
it in
You
the
know, if
past.
you-
They've done it in the past.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
No, that's okay.
but I do like the idea of the 300th because it was the 300th in,
It's the right year for them.
Correct.
and-
Right.
And Dan Haynes
Yes.
was a great
Right.
accountant for us for
He did
many,
a lot,
many years.
he
and I
did a
think
lot
should
for
be-
us for a little bit of money.
And I
So we
think-
need to bring him.
and I mean, I was impressed with the letter that we received in support of Rich Surratt also, just because that's not we aren't accustomed to getting those types of requests for recognition. And I thought it was a very thoughtful and nice letter of recommendation, so.
Right.
I agree.
So yeah, so unless anybody objects, so we would dedicate it to the 300th anniversary committee, and then as well as these two individuals with appreciation for their services, or something like
Sure,
that.
that sounds good. I'll make that motion if you want.
Second?
All right. Any other comments?
Clock eye.
Galvin, aye.
Well, did you have?
Carol.
Carol?
I just had a clarification. I guess I'd like to see the 300th anniversary as being the top. I hear that it's
Yeah,
very
big first.
fulfilling, but
Yeah.
maybe not quite so big, in mention Dan Haynes.
Right, my hope was the 300th anniversary committee with a picture of something to do with it, and then comments with, as well about the two individuals and their
Okay,
services.
that's a perfect.
Does that make
thing.
sense?
Yep. Carol, I.
Whitman, I.
And Nichols, aye. All right, in memory, John Ledger, former police officer and sergeant-in-chief, and James Meager, owner of Rutland Sanitation Service. So, I mean, I know John, I don't really know Mr. Meager, am I saying that right?
Meager, yeah.
Meager. Did he participate in the town? I don't really know the background of him as well.
Anita had provided some information. He was her recommendation. I can't say that I personally am familiar with him, but she had provided a little write-up on him. And of course, John Ledger was Chief Monaco.
Right.
And if I just I think my mind is blurring everything together. Were both of these passings in 2022?
Yes.
Because I know there was some additional ones that had not passed into 2022. So
Correct. Yes. Oh no.
I think John
passed in
just
23.
went.
I
You're
was gonna say, I
right.
think he
Yeah,
just
so he didn't
passed.
pass in
You're
this.
Yep, because we couldn't do Mr. Marsh because he passed in 2023, because we did get a lot of nominations for him.
Right.
You're right, Leah, good point. Yep, so it was just Mr. Meager then that
Okay.
passed.
Hi, it's Anita. Can I contribute something?
Sure.
Mr. Meager was actually awarded the Boston Post cane as the oldest resident in Rutland. And for that reason, I think that it would be appropriate to mention him.
So Anita, you had a little write-up on the background, because obviously we typically will have some kind of a write-up.
Yeah, I
that's in
can do
your
that.
packet. Did I not include it?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't go to page 2.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, I didn't.
There's nothing there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I apologize, I didn't include it, but I didn't have it.
No, that's all right. I just want to make sure because we always have some kind, obviously a write-up of.
I think I sent it in your digital package and I didn't print it.
Oh, okay.
Do you experience
All right, so, I mean, if we're all in agreement, there's only one nomination, unless there's a, so if we can get a motion?
Motion, man?
What? We're doing this in memory of two people, or
No,
we're doing it
because
as one?
John passed away, it was outside of the fiscal year, so.
Oh, okay, so we're looking at
James Meager.
James Meager of Rutland Sanitation, dedicated to him and his family.
Second?
All right, roll call?
Clock eye.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, I.
Benoit, aye.
And Nichols, aye. All right, great.
I wasn't trying to wrench into things, but
No, I'm glad you
No,
pointed
okay.
that out. It's hard because I'm focusing on the budget, which is
Right.
FY '24.
No, it's always hard to go back that whole year and figure out who's where.
yeah.
All right, Bedrock Golf Club, signed liquor license. We already we already voted on that, correct?
Yes, you already voted to approve it. The ABCC issued their approval on March 8th, so I just need the board to motion to sign it.
And obviously all paperwork
Motion to
and
sign.
money and everything's in, the fees paid.
Everything's all good.
We get a
I'll
motion?
second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Galvin, aye.
Coleman, aye.
And
Benoit, aye, but I do have a question. Is on the agenda, is that supposed to be 2/21/2021 or is that 2/21/20?
No, maybe that was like an FY22 mix-up, Carol. Maybe I was looking at the report when I wrote it.
That's all, not that it probably makes a difference, but
No,
just.
that was 23.
Okay.
I apologize.
is it right on the certificate though? Is it, are the dates correct on it?
The date is right on there on the agenda. I accidentally put that you approved it February of 21 instead of 23. But you
Makes
can
the right
double check the
date.
license. It should say March.
It is the right date on there.
Okay.
Okay.
It is, 50/50. What more can we ask for? With what's been going on with budgets and everything, you're lucky you still got a head on your shoulders.
All right, speaking of budgets, next, fiscal 24 budget discussion of Proposition 2.5 override and iterations of the budget. So, I mean, the board has pretty much agreed that, you know, we need to go forward with some kind of an override to properly fund our departments. There was discussion, did we all come to a consensus at the last meeting? Didn't we?
For as far as the override amount?
The amount. No, I thought that, well, we were all both in session.
Yep, it was a joint meeting, and the Finance Committee officially voted to recommend a $2 million amount. The Select Board did not take a motion yet.
I don't believe the Board of Selectmen voted on that.
No, we didn't.
We're going to talk about it here, I think.
Right now, it's, with the needs-based budget, we need $1.8 million. So I recommended to the finance and yourselves the other night, a $2 million override, which is $514 a year, or $128 a quarter. And that's, again, a needs-based budget. So that is with all the requests that all the department heads put in and went through the Office of the Town Administrator. Generally speaking, for services and supplies, it was approximately an 8.5% increase, plus all the contractual obligations, plus it covers the debt for the school, the 1.3 million. So that is, obviously, that's what we all need, that's what the town needs. So the town has to realize that. And Leah, I'm going to use your words again, we both use them alike because it appears that every year the town goes through this and miraculously somehow we pull out of it and we put a little Band-Aid on it. Those Band-Aids, that box of Band-Aids has run out. So strongly recommend, ask for the resident support, the board support, to move forward on a $2 million override.
All right, and I just ask that, you know, residents educate themselves, listen to some of the meetings, look at, there will be some significant cuts if we're not able to fully fund the departments. Some of those being like in DPW for cutting grass and maintenance and things, and that's going to impact everything that goes on in the town as well as the services that will be provided. So educate yourself and make, you know, educated decisions when you go to the.
And if I may, a couple things. Just, I think if people are educating themselves and look at the healthier towns in the state, they tend to have 2.5 overrides on some level of consistency. Maybe not every other year, maybe not every 5 years, but they have them in the 5 to 10 year time frame. I don't think Rutland has had a Prop 2.5 override in Anita. I forget what you had sent around, but I think it's been a long time.
No, it has been long.
1989 for Naquag, I think that's what Anita sent out, 1989 for Naquag, and the other two were defeated.
Right. And we've had debt exclusions for projects and everything to fund capital projects or capital equipment, but not for raising the levy to actually get to the services of where they need to be for a town of this, a bedroom community town of this size. We don't have the resident or the commercial tax base to contribute to that. And so it's not, I sometimes hear that it's fiscally irresponsible or something, and I think if you look historically across the state at the towns that are successful and thriving towns, they have had iterations of 2.5 overrides over the course of years to make sure that they're in check with where they need to be as their towns have grown also.
And I just like to clarify, because, I mean, the schools, we had a significant increase in the schools, so that's going to have an influence on our budgets. That's something that we're going to need to fund. They're not committed to 2.5%, so what they take above and beyond, which if the state allows it, there's not much we can do about it. Anything that extra that goes to the school is that much more that's taken away from our other services. And that's why we keep continually going backwards in some of our departments. And I did that for many years, and then Karen had the honor of taking that over as well. So you really need to educate yourself and see the impact that it's having, and that we really are at a point where we cannot fully function our departments at the current revenues that we're receiving. So.
And just for clarification, also, it's would need to pass at town meeting at the actual meeting itself, and then also it would be a ballot question at the ballot election that following Monday, where you'd be voting for select board, planning board, assessors, library trustees. I forget what else is on, moderator. I forget what else, and also the override question would be there.
Correct.
So it's both town meeting and the ballot. It's not one or the other.
And at town meeting, that we'll have the finance committee will have the different versions of the budget, which will be contingent on an override, including the school and all departments. And then if that override was not to pass some of the cuts, we'll try to keep that information out to the public as much as possible, the cuts that will occur if we're not able to fund it fully with an override. And that is not to threaten, we just want you to be informed and understand what we can and can't afford to fund if we do not have an override. So.
If I may, through the chair. So we've submitted, the office has submitted 3 budgets. One, obviously, to this gentleman's concern in the audience. The first one, the worst-case budget would be to close the 2 town buildings. Nobody wanted to do that, so we did submit another budget. And that is with the use of stabilization, which is that it's a rainy day fund, so that's what it's for. So if 2.5 did not pass and we had to go that route, you'd still have severe cuts in other departments. So I want everybody to be aware of that. So I'm actually asking in part from the board for your support for the budget submitted that would keep all town buildings open. Understanding that, we have to go back to FY23 levels. The only obligations we have are the contractual ones, but all costs for services and supplies would go back to FY23. We would have a reduction in public safety forces, certainly in DPW forces, and people have to understand that. So I want you to support the one, if 2.5 does not pass, and we all know it's going to pass, but if 2.5 does not pass, I'm looking for the support of the board to approve the budget submitted by the office, to keep all town buildings open and the use of stabilization. Now, that being said, and I know we heard this the other night at Finance, because there is another iteration that was given to us by the Finance Committee, which is an additional cut of $122,000, which would include staffing from all departments. And it's very important to understand that at this point so far, police has cut $300,000, fire has cut $270,000, DPW has cut $299,000, and the other iteration from finance was to cut an additional $122,000, which would virtually make all our town departments part-time. We have to understand how important this 2.5 override is. We cannot operate a town with part-time staff. So very important. I'm just asking for your support for budget number 2, if you will, that was submitted, a balanced budget with the use of stabilization.
And, sorry, if I may, I wholly agree with that statement. And also, I think the public and we all need to be mindful that using stabilization then is eventually it's again putting a Band-Aid on that because it's not recurring revenue. And so next year, we're either looking at that same amount that we're, at minimum, that same amount that's going to have to come out of stabilization, or raising that funds again, or having those super devastating cuts next year also. So again, I think
it'll get worse. As time goes on, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. We're at the bottom. We don't have any more available funds.
In my mind, that's again the kind of dire situation and need for raising funds.
So just to clarify, so there's a lot of different versions of the budget. The budget that the town administrator is speaking of, based on utilizing stabilization funds, those are like you're taking your savings to run your household. So it doesn't always get support, and the problem, as Leah was pointing out, is that money isn't going to be there every year. It's not a reoccurring revenue. The other issue at town meeting is that has to pass, I believe, by 2/3 vote to use stabilization. So if that version of the budget doesn't pass, then the Finance Committee has developed this other budget, which the town administrator has just discussed, which is even more significant cuts to all departments and personnel. None of that will matter if the override passes. If the override doesn't pass, one of those budgets are going to go into place, and those cuts are going to have to be made to whichever budget ends up being passed at town meeting. So people, like I said, please get educated, try to understand. It's complicated. If you have questions, please reach out to the town administrator's office, finance committee members, etc., to try to help you understand how an override works and the impact of the current budgets that we have and their versions and what their impact would be. So.
And just to reiterate, it has to pass at both town meeting and the ballot. So just because if it were to pass at town meeting doesn't mean that we're in the clear. It has to pass at the ballot also.
Correct.
And is it possible for the town administrator's office, FinCom, to have the iterations of the budget accessible to the public that want to be able to look at them and kind of, there's some people in the public that are more interested in the nitty-gritty and some aren't, but is there a way to have them posted online, the 1, 2, 3, 4 versions?
No, the 3 versions.
3.
Actually, working on that. Tamika and I are working on that now to make sure.
So they'll be able to hit something and open up whatever budget and be able to see the
Reader's Digest version
numbers.
of everybody will know the impacts of what it'll take. Yeah.
Do we have a plan, through the chair, do we have a plan on educating the senior population?
Actually, the town administrator is meeting with the seniors on Wednesday, correct?
9:30 Wednesday morning
Yes.
at Community Center.
Because I feel like they're going to make or break this. I hate to put it that way.
Well, it goes all ways, because it's going to affect education, it's going to, we talk about community events, but if we're not cutting the grass and we're not maintaining the properties, then it really doesn't make sense to have all these big parties and people getting ticks because we didn't cut the grass. I mean, it is significant. There's going to be a lot of things that we're just not going to be able to do.
But they're a powerful voting block. We got to get.
But I think also the younger residents also need to get out and vote, because I think oftentimes they're not getting to the polls and voting, and so.
You gotta get there to register too,
Yeah.
They've gotta be registered.
Although I think we have a pretty good registration percent, but I don't know.
I'm just going to go to Carol, and then I'll go to you, Joe. Carol, you had a comment?
Thank you, Lyndon. I don't know if this has been discussed. I know that we've had talks about it before, but having the calculator so that people know how it's going to affect them.
Yep, we're going to have that. We have that all set to go, correct, Becky?
I'm actually adding also abatement information on the bottom of, so some of the elderly or whatever, if they're eligible, it'll be eligibility information for exemption information will be included in that as well.
So that was part of the discussion, because, I mean, there's some people that are on fixed income that really this will be crushing to them. And we're going to do what we can with abatements and look at alternative supports for some of the people of the lower income that really just cannot absorb some of the additional costs. And I know that I've talked to Nancy about trying to do some kind of funding and stuff like they do for fuel assistance and other programs, so maybe doing some kind of a capital campaign to try to support some of the seniors that are lower income and may be impacted significantly. And like I said, that goes a long way with the neighbors that can afford it, as long as they feel that the senior that lives next to them is going to be taken care of as well, that may not have the means to afford that.
I don't know even how we go about this, but even when it comes closer to the time, are we able to post up banners and signs and anything, almost like an election?
I don't think we're not with town funds. Independent nonprofits. And I'm not telling people what to do. I'm just informing people, because people need to make their own choices, and it is significant. And I do ask that you try to get informed. But yeah, it's our place to make sure that people understand what their choices are and what the impact is. But no, independent groups can do that. But as a town,
no, I knew not on town buildings, but just in general, if maybe.
Any other? I'm sorry. Did I get you, Joe?
I just wanted to give you a quick example. So in '20, we had 5 people in highway to go and take care of things like the grass and stuff you were talking about. That was cut back in '22 to 3, and that's a Band-Aid, like the Band-Aid, so we have 3 people. Those 3 people are gonna be collecting, chipping, and cleaning up brush on the sides of the roads for weeks, right through to probably late June. We might get some money back from the state for overtime for that work, but the proposed budget, either of the 2 versions that were just mentioned, would cut that number down to 1.5. 1.5 people to manage 80 miles of road. Some 8-town buildings, all the fields, it's not realistic.
Through the chair, oh, sorry, go ahead.
But I just wanted to give you an idea. See, Band-Aids have happened, we've made cuts, we've trimmed and done everything we can, but it's so tight now that it's not recoverable.
Yeah, but we all know that, Joe. The problem is 3/4 of the town isn't paying attention.
No, I know that. We put a lot of-
That's the problem. Nobody knows what the heck we're talking about.
We try and put as much information as we can up
Right,
on
you
social
know,
media, so.
we gotta do our best, but if nobody pays attention,
But I was
then they just look up and they say, raise taxes, and they go, oh, I don't know.
I was just sitting here listening, and that's the real life thing that'll happen. You had the Band-Aid, now you're looking at the severe cuts and.
Excuse me, so yeah, name and address again, I'm sorry.
Rich Lopez, Sherilyn Drive. So that's part of the reason that, I decided to come today, because I stumbled on a Facebook post where some of these initial budget scenarios, like now I'm understanding we have, a choice here and there are different pros and cons each one, but it shocked me. Because I think, if residents aren't informed and they're not paying attention, like they'll just assume, we'll always have the library.
Right.
Or we'll always have an adequate number of people providing essential services, right? It's like, it's just what towns do. And, I'm grateful that we've come this far, but it seems like we're at a critical juncture.
Yeah.
Even our infrastructure is failing. We have a lot of work that needs to be done and stuff. And if you really want to be shocked, go to a finance committee, especially with Karen chairing it. No, but it's a very difficult process. It's very tedious. You have to have all sorts of different versions, just anticipating different scenarios of what's going to go on in the town meeting. Dick, you have
Dick Williams, Overlook. If 2 towns turned it down, the budget for the school, does it not go back to the school for them to?
It does for the discretionary portion, which, obviously would have some kind of an impact if for some reason that is adjusted. Ours is much more significant than the other towns, so even if it's lowered somewhat, it's not going to have a huge impact. So I'm not saying we should just blindly accept this, because there's been some things going through, that's happened in the school that is shocking as well, but I think the current administration is trying to make corrections and become more transparent. So I'm not saying blindly we should just accept everything that the school wants, but bottom line, that impact is not going to be as significant on us as we're going to have to make up what we're mandated to pay anyway. So even if we didn't pay the discretionary amount, we're still going to be cutting our departments because we cannot afford to absorb the increase in our school. We had an increase in student population of 78, and most of them had decreases or maybe 1 or 2. So our portion is much higher, so our impact is much greater. And regardless of whether it passes as is or if it's reduced, it's not going to be significant enough to solve Rutland's problems.
The minimum local contribution, the portion that the state says that we need to pay is 7.23% or something.
I thought it was more than that.
No, but then there's the discretionary piece is like 2.55 or 2.2% or something. So Rutland's total increase is 9.55, I think, but the state says, Rutland, you're on the hook for 7.5% regardless, because you've had increased number of students based on the total population of the schools.
Right. So it's a prime example. So the school budgets combined is going to be over 9% of an increase. The town is locked in at 2.5%. So obviously, the difference between that 2.5% and that increase in the school is coming somewhere, and it's going to come from our other departments and our services. So it's very difficult to understand, especially if you're not involved in it. But like I said, try to be get educated and talk to individuals that are involved in towns. Dick, you had another comment?
Henceforth, the Growth Management Committee, have you set that up yet?
I'm sorry, for the what?
Growth Management Committee?
I think that's Leah. It's these guys. I can't set everything up there.
But some
But
of
it is a discussion.
is getting buy-in from the planning board,
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Some of it.
some of it. And with knowing that we were going to likely be transitioning to a new town administrator, getting them on board and that background knowledge regardless of who it was, so.
So, I mean, people that don't understand, to educate a child is a lot more expensive than the tax revenues that we're getting from our properties. And we depend on individual household income. You know, we don't have a lot of industry, don't have additional revenues. So that's why it's very difficult when you have a fast-growing population of young families, and that just has an impact on the budget. All right, I think that's probably enough unless anybody else has anything.
So I just have the question.
Oh, we need to make a motion.
No, our town administrator asked if we were going to support his version 2. Are we supporting his version 2? I don't know if we needed a motion to support his, but I mean, I'll make it if it's necessary.
You can, but I tried to explain, so that's the first version we're gonna go with, but if the stabilization utilization doesn't pass, then we have to go to the next version, correct? And then if we don't get an override, that's what we live with. So I think we're supporting it in succession, correct? So yes, and let's hope that, you know, people want to support an override to
Karen
fully
Narwhal,
fund.
149 Palmagussit Road. It is the Finance Committee's job to bring the budget to the town floor, not the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Yeah, but we approve it, do we not?
You do not.
No.
Finance
Okay.
Committee brings it to the town floor.
So everybody, it's not our fault, it's theirs.
No, we're
But
all
we're
in
the
this
ones that-
together, and we
Yes.
support,
We are.
we've had the discussions, we understand the situation. None of it is good, and, you know, it's an override is difficult in a lot of families, and we understand that. But we also need to understand, just as families are dealing with increases within their households, the town is dealing with increases, as well as we've had cuts due to increases in our school and education. And the community is part of your household budget, you know, we're all part of the family, so, and we do like to celebrate, so hopefully, you know, we can support each other and make sure we adequately fund what we need to do.
But I think we do need a motion for the override
Yep.
and the dollar amounts.
Right, so why aren't you making?
So I'll make a motion that the select board
Getting late.
place and endorse a Prop 2.5 override question of $2 million based on the recommendation of the town administrator's office and finance committee, as well as our department heads.
Because we work together.
Second.
Yeah. All right, so we got 2 seconds. Any other comments? Roll call.
Clock eye.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye.
Benoit, aye.
And Nichols, aye. All right,
Tamika, I
thank you.
know Anita's on, but you can work with her for the appropriate MGL language and get it to her so that it gets on the ballot. Thank you.
All right, getting towards the end. Next, ARPA requests. So we have a request for 2 different amounts, $19,500 for the remainder of the 3-year contract with Charter Spectrum. And then we have a request for $1436 for a deficit in town sign purchase gift account. I'm not quite sure. So we're going to take them one at a time. Spectrum, you know, we already went over that a million times. I know this board questioned it, trying to make sure that it wasn't going to be any more than what we were approving, and here we are approving more.
If I may, through the chair, just to understand, because we have worked on this, and obviously you know where we stand on this. This is not the fault of Spectrum. This was an agreement that was signed, that the monthly service fee, permitting fee, so on and so forth, was not taken into consideration. So we just didn't have enough for what was initially approved to come out of charter. And this is to make up the difference, because we do get that average of $1,500 bill a month for the 3-month contract. So that's where this came from, and I've explained this before, so.
Yeah, well, that's why I was saying about scrutinizing these contracts for the fine print, because like I said, I know that the select board brought it up many times, so that really never should have gotten by, and I'm not really sure how.
Right.
But we're committed to it, so.
And I understood, and to Donna and Becky, that's why the question come up before, because we have to make sure this happened in the past. We just want to make sure it doesn't happen again, that's all.
Correct.
And if I may, on a positive note, Gary and I have been working, and Mike Moriarty as well for his part, have been working with Charter, and we were able to get back $12,000 in credits because of things being billed incorrectly. So that did help kind of catch us up a bit. But
So that's already taken into consideration?
That's already been taken into consideration. Yep, that helped out with a couple of our monthly payments, because our average monthly payment is about $6,300. And as Gary mentioned, about $1,500 of that is taxes and fees and things like that. Yes, so this calculation is based on getting us through the end of our contract, which is December of 2024.
Right. And I mean, and communication obviously is important. We never would have made it through COVID without it. So we needed to try to have the best as we can. It's just frustrating that we weren't expecting this. You had a...
No, and I just was going to say, is there any push? I know at one point Worcester had been pushing to kind of move away from Spectrum, whether that was going out on their own and creating something. Is there any continued conversation, just because Spectrum has central mass by the reins and can basically do whatever they want? And is there any push anywhere that can localize some sort of effort to not have to be in this situation where we have no choice? Then, because I felt like we as a board grilled Spectrum on multiple calls about the expenses and what else was it going to be, and this was going to be our monthly bill for the next 2 years at the time, 3 years or whatever, and grilled them, and we got the same answer, and now I think this is the second or third time that we've had, it's they're billing us more. You guys are good about staying on top of them and reconciling the bills. It shouldn't have to come to that, to be honest. And secondly, we have no other option. So I know some of the communities on the North Shore had regionalized their internet because they were having issues. I don't know if it was regionalized for the entirety of the municipalities and the residents, or if it was just for emergency communication purposes or what. But I don't know if there's any talk, if cable has heard any talk, if anybody else has heard any talk about pushing for
alternative sources.
Yeah.
All we get, really honestly, Leah, is that's all we have. And unfortunately, right now, that's all we have is Spectrum. There's nothing else.
I think we could do is, as a region, and talk to other communities and talk to our representatives, and try to work on to push for alternative sources for.
And I'll try to go back. It was a few years ago about the regionalization piece, and try to find out what exactly they did. To see, it may not even be feasible, but I think at one point in some of my frustration Googling, I had seen that Worcester was looking at options also, because they had been very frustrated with Spectrum. Obviously, we're small communities in comparison to suburban Boston that tend to have multiple providers, but at the same point, if we can coalesce as a regional group, or involve CMRPC and Montechusett Planning and everything, maybe there's some traction there to do something.
Yeah, maybe once the new town administrator gets established, we can reach out and meet with Kim and Ann and talk about some kind of what might be available for us to take. Start some kind of meeting. All right, so right now we're looking at the money for the Charter Spectrum, $19,500 to come out of ARPA funds.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Clock eye.
Galvin aye.
Whitman, aye.
And Nichols aye. All right, the next one is this $1,436 for deficit in town sign purchase gift account. So we do have some kind of explanation on this. I don't know if you want to go over it, Gary, more. Or...
I don't know if Donna, if you want to fix this, Donna.
So I can certainly start the conversation on this one. I don't have the history, but each year when our free cash is certified, if there are deficits, your free cash is lowered by any of those deficits. Since 2020, there has been a deficit of the $1,436 in this particular account. So my thought was the only way to get rid of it is to, one, raise and appropriate, or possibly we could take it from the ARPA funding to stop this deficit from hurting our free cash every year. So so what happened in 2020, in fiscal 2020, the donations that came in were $1,436 less than the revenue that came in. So I'm simply trying to help us stop the deficit and stop the deficit from lowering our free cash every year.
How could we have not
So-
funded?
So I reached out to Tamika for some answers, and I talked to Mike Nicholson because he was the one that set up these accounts originally. And he was very clear that when he had set up the accounts and the initial passive signs, it was 8 signs, I think, and
It's for $1,900 each.
yeah, and that covered the 8 signs, and essentially, and there was maybe a slight little extra that was supposed to be used for plantings around the signs and everything.
Right.
Then there was one sign that was stolen, and that happened after Mike left. And I don't know, my guess is that sign that was stolen was then replaced out of this account without any funds there. And I don't know who was town administrator at that time, and I don't know where that came from. But because it's not the full amount of a sign, because there is that little bit of extra in the account that was supposed to be used for landscaping and everything around. But I was also equally confused as why it's been in the negative since 2020 and not.
So is that something that would not be covered by insurance if something is stolen?
Well, there's a long story to that, but that monies that you're talking about that are overdrawn, they did not replace the whole sign, they repaired the sign that was destroyed.
Yeah, I didn't know. I just remember that a sign
Because they
had-
cut, yanked the sign off and threw it down in the Quinnipiac Reservoir, and after the police got involved and all that, anyway, we got the sign back, and it was repaired and put
And
back up.
that was the
But it
expense.
costs that much? Is that what we're thinking this money is, to repair that one sign?
There also what went through there was those lawn signs that said Rutland Strong, where there was donations for that. So I don't know if we bought, I don't know exactly, but if we bought a lot of those up front and then we didn't recoup the money for that.
The town
as
bought
well.
those
So it's
signs?
I'm sorry?
What? The town bought those signs? I thought the individual
gift-
bought those.
It went through this gift account. It went through this gift account, the same, those Rutland Strong
Yeah.
lawn signs.
I thought people had to purchase those. How would they distribute it?
Came in and brought the money. They went through the gift, because you can't just hand them out. We paid for them through this gift account.
But
as
anybody
well.
could just get them at no charge?
No, they were supposed to pay. I don't
So
know.
that's what I'm wondering, so why didn't that pay?
So I'm thinking, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm thinking that we purchased 400 and only 300 were then paid for by a resident. So that's where they were purchased before the
Right.
resident, there wasn't an order taken and then.
Right,
and
so they
then-
weren't all sold.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, again, I wasn't employed here and this was a long time ago. I'm only trying to help us
Right.
no longer
No, no.
have a deficit.
Well, we're not blaming
I
you.
know.
Next year.
Exactly.
No, well, so there's 100 signs sitting around somewhere then, right?
It could be the repair, it could be. the-
Rutland's not looking too strong
without
right
knowing
now.
exactly. So
Weaknesses,
not enough
so-
money came in to go up for the expenses.
It's very
that
frustrating.
came out.
So this isn't something we just pay out of free cash. We got to take it out of ARPA at the end of the year and just reconcile. Did this just come to light?
Yeah, that was my other question, is if it's been in deficits since
Right.
2020, then why is it only now?
Well, I've only been employed with the
Well,
town
right,
since
no,
February
but-
1st, so yeah, I was just trying, I was trying to
everything.
be proactive and to avoid
Right.
it continuing.
No, yeah, but again, we're not blaming you,
I
but
know.
we're wondering why.
Right.
Well, Dan probably just left it on because it was
Yeah.
$1,400 and with all the other things going on,
It's
he's
like
okay, we'll just
minimal. right.
leave it. It's a minimal amount.
But I mean, is it something we just want to throw out and when we do free cash? I mean, why do we, I mean, it's not that much money, but to Leah's point, we don't want to just be spending ARPA funds all the
But
time.
if you clear it now,
Yeah.
it won't hurt us for the free cash certification that
Okay,
begins
so it's
July 1st.
probably more of a benefit to pay it now and we'll get more free cash later? Can I get that free cash back and put
Yeah.
it back in?
Excuse me, can I?
No, go ahead.
So, right, there's no urgency on this. It certainly is up to the board. Knowing that I was coming tonight with the request, I thought I would add it at the same time for a conversation.
But it does have an impact on the free cash.
It does have an impact, yes.
Okay, so I mean, that's a valid point.
Through the chair, if it pleases the board, I'd like to look through the line item and see what we got see if there's any chance we have $1,436.
I mean, like I say, in comparison, it's not a huge amount of money, but it's just another thing. But I do think, I mean, in my opinion, it should be resolved. I mean, especially if our accountant is recommending that we resolve it.
Right. But maybe if we can wait another at least 2 weeks, and I don't know if Gary and Tamika will have time to go through this stuff, but when I had a very brief conversation with Mike, and he said that for the town signs themselves, the wooden signs, he had contracts and everything that should be in the office somewhere. And as far as the yard signs, I didn't specifically ask him about that, but he didn't mention that those also were coming out of this gift account. That my understanding was this gift account was set up explicitly for the wooden signs that were supposed to be monies in and monies out. I don't know. And so I would rather wait and see if we can reconcile where exactly this piece is coming from, and then if it's a matter of 2 weeks versus, I don't know.
So, I mean, that's good. So we'll just put it on hold for now, and then, I mean, we agree that it's something that needs to be addressed, but maybe with...
And thank you for bringing it to our attention, because like I said, I had that similar thought, like, what is the cause of this, but then also, why has it been just going on since 2020, and we're just now learning about it, and, you know, want to know if we're going to send it off, why.
Yep, makes total sense.
What else are you going to find?
So there are at least one more, but I didn't think it was, so there probably are a couple more that maybe could be discussed. But this one seemed to me that it was appropriate use for ARPA, where it was a community event, you know, a community use. So that is why I brought this one forward this evening.
Okay, thank you.
So these signs that we have put up, is it about time for new rental spaces on the bottom?
2024.
2024.
It was for 5 years.
5-year term.
Next year.
Oh, 5 year. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So then we'll move on just to go over some of the goals and objectives. I know staffing is on there. We've talked about internships. We also had talked about exit conferences for employees that have left. I'd like to kind of go back as far as we can to see like how many people have left departments. Because in part of the budget discussion, we talked about the impact of not being able to fund COLAs and not being able, you know, the constant threat of not being able to fund departments and stuff like that. I think that has an effect because we've had turnovers in all our departments. So I'd kind of like to see what kind of a trend we've had over the years based on the budgets. If we can just, as much as we can, get information on what kind of turnover we've seen. I don't know how far back people want to go, but I think it kind of speaks for the security that people feel as far as their jobs in town. So I'd kind of like to see that.
It's a cost savings to have people that know the job in the job,
Right,
rather
because we
than
have to
have to
retrain everybody
retrain and
constantly.
have Becky.
And
with
I know there's all
benefits and-
different reasons. It's not, you know, it's salary, it's internal issues, but I think there's a trend, and I think there's a reason for that, because we haven't been able to continually fully support our departments. So I'd kind of like to see that impact that it's having on our departments as well.
If I may, Lyndon, we do have information for the last 12 months, and we don't have it broken down yet by department, but in the last 12 months, we've lost 62 employees.
See, that's significant.
That's huge.
That's huge.
Across the department.
So that kind of talks about the difficulties that the town is dealing with, because people don't leave like that. I mean, there's certain people, leave for different reasons, but when you have that kind of an impact, and the impact it has, as Leah had mentioned, on retraining, and, you know, it's just, people have to understand that people don't feel, that the employees don't feel secure and obviously appreciated in their current positions, because they're just not receiving the resources they need. So I just want to make a point of that we kind of educate people on that's having an impact as well. I don't really think we have much, we've talked about much financial stuff. Planning, you guys are going to get together, and do you have anything tonight, or you're going to?
No, but I think having a new town administrator,
Yeah,
and
we're
then
gonna kick
we
it
need,
off,
because I think we need buy-in from planning, the planning department, office, board, everything. And so that's kind of just been, I know the planning board has had some other concerns, so.
Communication, I know, like I provided Gary and Tamika with the MMA training on communication policies. I really do think we should start working on some kind of a communication policy. So I'd like us to try to start developing some information on that, and when the new town administrator, I mean, we're not going to do that overnight, and that can't be our priority with a lot of things we're dealing with, but I'd like to move forward with having as much information on that to try to develop some kind of policy on that.
I think also maybe if we can have a brief refresher for boards and commissions on open meeting law requirements, even especially for like email communication and what can or can't be sent via email, whether it's for information or planning or whatever. So
Anita, do you know if there's any kind of training we can come in for that? From like MMA or from the insurance company or anything like that? Are there any resources? You're on mute or asleep?
I think that there are, I know that the state has detailed online training, but I think sometimes hearing something from, bodies hearing the same information from a standalone person and then being able to ask questions.
Right.
I think the state does something. I'm not 100% sure.
I'd rather have some kind of formal training than rather have somebody sit and just watch it, tell them to watch a video or something like that. That's available. So maybe if we can kind of coordinate and see if through one of these other programs we can get some kind of training.
Yeah, Maya sent us a whole list of what's available through them, and it's a whole full page, so I'll
Okay,
take
yeah,
a
we
look
can
at
look
that and
at
visit
something
that.
in that area. Okay, great.
Thanks, Karen.
Now, and then we are going to try to meet Monday, have executive session to have discussions with the nominated town administrator on the 27th. Yep.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else?
Nope. Motion to adjourn.
Well, I just want to thank Carol for staying awake
Thank you,
and
Carol.
participating in the meeting.
Thanks, Carol.
It's now Tuesday here.
Carol, the clubs are just opening up in April.
Nice to hear your
No,
voice,
yeah,
Carol.
we appreciate it. We wish you well.
We miss you, Carol.
Thank you.
See you, Carol.
All right.
Good luck.
Thank
Give
you.
our best
So-
to Aaron, Carol, please.
Yep, prayers are with you.
Okay, so
Take care.
Skip has a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call.
Galvin, aye.
We're gonna-
Good night.